Before we move on, I want to take another little bit of a philosophical detour and talk about Daniel Dennett, who I got to speak with a couple of times on the show. I don't know if you were friends. I know that he really liked your work.
We met many, many times.
Many times. And for him, if I recall correctly, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but for him, language is something that is quite vital to consciousness and to minds. And in particular, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it is in his book, Kinds of Minds, he thinks that only humans and dogs are conscious. And this seems very contrary to what we've been saying today. So I want to hear your thoughts on these things.
Yes. So we shared a lot in our perspectives. We're very similar in many ways, but there are some differences. And I think we both share the idea that the whole world inside the head is a construct of information processing. And when we say we're conscious, it's because a bundle of information describes us that way. And when we talk about magic and other kinds of essences and experiences and dualism, all of that derives from information, which in principle is understandable and in principle engineerable and buildable. So we were both materialists in this sense. I think he would put the models, the consciousness concepts at a higher level and at a culturally learned level. And so to him, people believe they're conscious, not to trivialize it, but sort of in the same way that kids believe that Santa Claus exists, because we grow up in a culture that tells us it's true until it gets so absorbed into us that we just believe it. And language is an incredibly important part of that process. And without language, we don't have the framework for describing ourselves to ourselves. So to him, it's a culturally learned phenomenon. To me, it's not. To me, it's way deeper than that. It's something built in. It's as deeply built in as, there's it's not an accident that I called it the attention schema in parallel to the body schema. So the body schema is a built-in reflexive evolutionary adaptation. The brain builds a model of your body and you can't help it. You can't turn it off. It's not like you learn culturally such that you know where your arms and your legs are. It's part of our perceptual machinery. So you close your eyes and you know where your arm is and how it's moving. And the body scheme is wonderful. It's simplified and it's sort of illusory. And that comes particularly clear when you do things like when people get an amputation, they lose an arm, but they still have a phantom arm. That's the body schema in their brains telling them that there's an arm there when there actually isn't. And so the body schema, the thing is we all have phantom limbs. All of us. I have a phantom limb. It's just my phantom limb happens to be coextensive with a real limb, and so the two move with each other. But if I had an amputation, then my phantom limb would exist without the real limb, right? So that's what the body schema is. It's not intellectual. It's not dependent on language. We didn't learn it like we learned about Santa Claus. We have it baked into us, but so does every other mammal on Earth. Probably every vertebrate on Earth has a body schema without which you can't even move your body appropriately. And so my take is that the thing we call consciousness is a model of how our brains function. And it's built in and it's there from birth. It gets tuned up, but it's mostly there from birth. It evolved very deep in evolutionary time. It's automatic. You can't learn it. It's not a cultural adaptation. It has nothing to do with language. All people have it, but so do probably, like I said, all mammals, all birds, and probably some reptiles. And so in those ways, I'm really different from where Dennett is. So there's much more of an automatic reflexive component to the consciousness component as I theorize.